I've done interviews with older adults and young adults in our group, and one observation I made, older adults use a lot of different language. In some of our interviews, we didn't even use Jesus. Sometimes God was a little bit more safe to use, but Jesus, we kind of avoided that word, whereas with an interview with an older adult, it would come out sometimes every other sentence, it seemed.
Well, I think a lot of us, especially on this trip, have been probably burnt by that notion that like Christianity is so exclusive, and if you do not claim Jesus Christ, then you're going to hell. We definitely are afraid of being associated with the religious right.
I think there's a general reaction to a fairly evangelical and fundamental cultural move in the last 15 years in our culture in the U.S. So young adults are pretty hesitant to use that kind of language because it aligns with a certain kind of Christianity that has been, in our experience, in some of our experiences, pretty repulsive. And that's the kind of theology that has been labeled evangelical, it's been labeled fundamentalist, that doesn't consider other people's stories and has a hard time asking questions about capital T truths.
In our generation, I think we're trying to be so careful to not step on people's toes. And I think that's in some way a healthy thing.
That language can be used after we have a relationship and after there's an understanding of what you mean when you say Jesus is the number one person in my life.
I don't want to see that as a difference necessarily in our theology, in the way we love God, we love our neighbor. I partly just see that as a difference in how we express a life of faithfulness.
And so we want to be careful with the words that we use. And I think this word of Jesus, I'm not so sure why that seems to be why we don't use that word, because, I mean, come on, Jesus was pretty cool.
So words like Jesus fall to the wayside when possible. And some of the traditional language of fire and Son of God and some of those stuff that's very biblical, and that I think as young adults today we need to reconsider how we journey with that language. But I mean, I think those are some of the reasons that language has been set aside for a time.